Why in HR we need artificial intelligence and what they are really needed for, whether it's HR, talent acquisition. And most of you have heard the term of like kind of talent advisors and how people within talent acquisition need to move from like kind of order takers and just taking what the hiring manager is requiring and just going and open a requisition into more of advising them, providing them insights about what are the talent market dynamics. How can we attract people from the market into our organization, especially with the competition that we're having in the markets. So thank you very much, everyone, for having me today. And it's a pleasure. It's my second HR Congress. I remember 2017, I was here as well. So my name is Ehab, originally born and raised in Egypt. And then I worked with PepsiCo for the past 10 years, several roles, 3 continents, most of them within the talent acquisition. So today, actually, I'll be sharing with you some insights about a recent technology that we've been implementing within the artificial intelligence space, within talent acquisition. And I would like to reflect actually on a couple of points that Kevin shared in terms of like kind of structure, change, and what's the role that HR is playing actually in rolling out those technologies and making sure that they are delivering a business value to the organization. So starting with the first one is basically why in HR we need artificial intelligence and what they are really needed for, whether it's HR, talent acquisition. And most of you have heard the term of like kind of talent advisors and how people within talent acquisition need to move from like kind of order takers and just taking what the hiring manager is requiring and just going and open a requisition into more of advising them, providing them insights about what are the talent market dynamics. How can we attract people from the market into our organization, especially with the competition that we're having in the markets. The second piece is basically it's critical work that's not really done now. So I have 15, 20 requisitions open at a time. I will need to source 200, 300 resumes on each of every requisition, schedule the interviews, doing the interviews. I don't really have the time to go out in the market to understand what are the new roles that they are evolving, what are the new skills, what are the new sources of talents that I will need to tap into. So again, artificial intelligence can give you like this space in order to be like most of like transactional activities that can be automated, you automate them, and then you have this space in order to do those activities. And last but not least, and this has been like in the keynote speakers today, has been talking about changing in structures and how the roles are evolving within the organization, and AI actually can bridge some of those changes as well. So from a talent acquisition perspective, so this is from an HR overall, but when we like deep down into like or like kind of dive into the talent acquisition specifically, those are like few things that we as PepsiCo started to see, and you guys as well, if you started to embark into an artificial intelligence journey, you will see like there is a lowering time and cost in terms of sourcing talents and hiring talents. So the dollar sign that you put next to how much do I pay for each and every hire, this will go down. Secondly, unbiased artificial intelligence can be a great source for you to help surface talents who are already in your applicant tracking system or like even internal talents. And I will share with you some insights on that. Because, for example, at PepsiCo, we have on a yearly basis more than 800,000 applications. And we have in the US alone like 50 different recruiters who are working. So I can start a journey with a candidate. He's a great candidate, but he is the second best candidate for a role. And then this candidate is completely lost because the second role, similar to that role, there's someone else in a different state who's working on it, and they know nothing about this candidate. So how artificial intelligence can help you actually resurfacing those candidates, re-engaging with them, and then they have already been in the process, you have all the details about them, they have been second best. So you are like literally shorten the time period that you are taking them through significantly compared to if you are starting from scratch with a new candidate. Does it make sense? Super. So the technology actually that we started to use, it's called HiredScore. So HireScore actually basically has 3 or 4 features that we started to use, and we started with the US, and then we went into expanding globally. The first one of which is Fetch, which is I just shared with you. Basically, Fetch looks at the candidates who are sitting in your applicant tracking system, who are sitting in your candidate relationship management system, or CRMs, and as well as your internal employee information system. So it is integrated with the 3. You post a requisition. 1 minute, you are provided with a short list that it is matching this job requisition from both internal and external talents who are like sitting in your applicant tracking system. And what is the value of that? Those are people who already applied to your roles before. They might have been already in a process of interviewing, and they might have went through your assessments before that you are like putting people through. So they are already engaged with you as a brand, and they would like to join your organization. So this is the first one. The second one is basically the employee information system. This integration provides an ability, especially with like kind of medium to large size organization, visibility to those internal talents that you're having. So for example, in a finance function, a VP is having a role, or like a senior director is having a role, a mid-management. Those are like, there is 200, 300 people who might fit into those roles. But the number of like associates who go into like this people planning, this discussions is just like 10 or 15% out of this full pool. So how you can surface other candidates in order to make sure that they have this visibility. One thing that we do in our employee information system, I'm not sure about you guys, but we add as well previous experiences before PepsiCo. So in the system, they go build their own profiles that includes their own experiences in PepsiCo and before that. And the system reads that. So sometimes I just joined the organization 1 year back, and I have only 1 role at PepsiCo, but I've been already working for 10 years. And I have experiences that they are very solid, and they are mapped with what we are looking for in an organization in a new role. The second one is what we call the spotlight screening, which is basically this is for more of the active candidates who apply. They start to rank them for you in terms of who is matching the requirements that you are looking for more. So it gives them score. And this is very interesting because, again, whenever you change the requirement on the job description, scores of people start to change, and they start to surface for you more candidates. So sometimes you would have like very low scores. You go and have a conversation with a hiring manager and say that, you know what, the talents that we're looking at, the maximum kind of scoring that we're having, and actually we don't give them an actual score, but it's more of like A, B, C, and D. And we don't have A's based on the requirement that you're putting. Do you think that all those master's degrees and PhDs are really a job requirement, or you think that those are like kind of more of preferred requirements? And it drives conversation and dialogue with the hiring managers. The last thing is basically what we call it is a hiring manager hub, which is specifically for hiring manager, whereby those hiring managers gets insights once they open the role about like similar roles in the past, how much time did it take us to fill those roles with those requirements, and this again helps with like kind of what is the sourcing strategy that we're having. 70 or 80% of the time we go internal. Do you really would like to go external and get like 200 candidates that we end up like filling someone internal? It took us like with those requirements in place, it took us like 3 months to hire this role. Would you like to be flexible this time in order not to have this lead time? So all those kind of questions help driving a dialogue and makes actually, again, back to the talent advisory aspect, makes our talent acquisition people like much more informed while they're going into those dialogues with the hiring managers, because without such a tool, they wouldn't necessarily have those insights in a normal applicant tracking system. So the one thing that I would like kind of dive deeper in with you guys is basically the fetch feature. And the fetch feature, as I mentioned, is basically, it's the feature that surfaces those candidates for you and making sure that you re-engage with them. So what we found is basically fetch leads who are contacted apply much more significantly higher rates, at significantly higher rates, versus the ones that you reach out through normal sourcing channels. For example, think of your LinkedIn in-mails. With the people that you are contacting through LinkedIn, the percentage of application is 2 to 5% compared to the number of the people. So if you reach out to 100 people, only 2 to 5 people will really apply to the role. Here, the percentage is like 4 times more. And the reason why, because they are already engaged with your brand. The idea is that how to find them and how to surface them for the recruiters. The second one is that the ones who apply, there is a much higher percentage for them to get interviews. And for those who get interviews, there's a higher percentage for them to get hired. So it is throughout the whole process from start to finish, you will find that once you start to use those kind of intelligent tools that provides you with those more insights and help you finding the right talents, it really helps you with the time to hire and the time to shortlist. And those are like the facts and figures. And these are like PepsiCo specific data about candidates that, or like the process that we implemented. We actually launched this in May, June last year. And it has been like, there has been, with any technology, there's like kind of 3 months of learning and experimenting and getting closer to the technology. And then there is just like the real value that you started to see. So if you looked at this, so here, for example, review to application conversion is that compared to an average in-mail, it is 19%. So once I have a fetch that it is provided for the recruiter, once they review them, 20% of those are getting contacted and apply to roles compared to just 2 to 5% here. And 58% reduction time to first status. For all of you, because I went through the profiles of who is attending. So most of you are recruiters or worked in recruitment as part of your career. So ATSs, you have different HR statuses, people submit, and then there is like management review or shortlisting or phone screening. So the first change in HR status, there's an increase 58% in that. 43% reduction in time to present the shortlist to the hiring manager. So if you think that I am usually present in 2 weeks, you are lessening this into like only 1 week. Apply to interview rate 16% versus 2% when it comes to a normal external candidate. 25% reduction in time to interview, and 26% interview to offer rates compared to 6.5%. And the most intriguing one is just like 3.2% apply to higher rate. So the ones who apply, 3% of them you hire, which might seem like kind of is a very small percentage, but when you put it into perspective in terms of like normally what is the percentage, it's 0.8%, because usually you have like 150 applications and you only hire one. So those are like kind of key matrices that we looked at in order to just think of, are we really getting the return on investment or not? And seems like we are. And whether it is like kind of helping the recruiter or not. There is lots of additional kind of cherries on the top, if we can say, that comes with the platform in terms of like ease of use, just making sure that you are surfacing information that it is critical for the recruiters. And the one thing that I love actually working with the new emerging technology vendors is that they are still small, still flexible. Whenever you provide them with a feedback, they start to work on it in order to add those new features, compared to like kind of the well-established technologies that you will need to have a consensus with, like kind of, I remember one of those clients. You need to have a consensus with like 3-4 different big clients to convince them to add a new feature into their applicant tracking system. So it's just like we're enjoying being early in the game. So you can really be able to like more of influence the roadmap in terms of like what are the features and new stuff that they will need to add. So this is basically where we're using it. So we are using it in like now 6 different countries, so US and India, and we have 4 markets within the Middle East and Africa. And we are expanding actually in Mexico, Brazil, and Ireland as we speak. And by end of 2019, we'll have like 80 different recruiters who are using it across the market. So we'll be almost like 35% of our talent acquisition organization globally will be using it. And then further expansions in 2020. So before moving into the next slide, which is more of like kind of tips when you are embarking a journey of selecting an AI technology, what might be the consideration? Any questions you guys have about the tool, what it is delivering? Yes, please. Yes. Yes, so this is a very good question, which is because the fact that we just launched this last year, you don't have yet data on retention and what it is, the differences in retention. But this is something still on the like kind of the roadmap in terms of like the future KPIs that we'll need to look at, but it is a great question. Any other questions? Yes, please. Okay, so a great question because it reflects as well on the element of change and collaboration with IT and making sure that it is just like more of a collaborative effort. So it took us like from preparation standpoint, I can tell you we started the first conversation in 2016, and it took some time, like making sure that the tool is unbiased, you make sure that you do all the right due diligence, not to be in like a situation where you turn it on and then you need to turn it off due to whatever compliance reason. But when we decided that we're going ahead, this was early 2018, and it took us like 5-6 months to do like the integrations and making sure that, because this is like more of artificial intelligence and there is a machine learning aspect to it as well. So what happens is that you inject all the applicant tracking system data, CRM data that you're having, the employee information system data into the, what we call it like the brain of the tool. So it starts to learn the different specifics of PepsiCo and what a successful profile looks like. So once they are fetching too, so it's not just a keyword search, that it is, they have these keywords in the resume and they have these keywords on the job description and just do the math. No, it's actually, it looks at what is the successful profile that we used to hire based on like a 15, 20-year data. So, so there is a lot of work that you need to do. Having said that, there is like more of an ongoing feedback cycle that happens. So once the tools start to fetch those talents for the recruiters still have an opportunity to say that, you know what, this is not the right talent. This is where the tool got it wrong. And they submit the feedback, and this feedback goes into the system to readjust those candidates that they are presenting to the recruiters. So it's more of an ongoing process because this what helps, just like making sure that it is providing the value. But as I mentioned, it's 5-6 months to be able to do this, and then you launch it, and then it's the continuous change management and monitoring utilization and value. Please. So we have 1 and then 2. Please.
Is there a machine learning then involved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There is a machine learning.
We have microphone, just the
Yes.
auditorium also.
Is the tool supporting multi-language fetching?
Yes, it does. The idea is...
Every language?
Sorry?
Every language?
What, sorry?
How many language?
Not all languages. So what happens is basically because part of the machine learning aspect is they look into your data, but they inject as well external market data and insights. And so, for example, if we are looking at, while we've been implementing this, in the US, it's very normal that you will have a high school or a bachelor degree, for example. But in India, the norm is that you're having a master's degree. So those like market nuances, they start to inject. So they understand that a master's degree is not like the US, it's more of a mid-management, for example. No, actually, this is an entry level. So similarly with the languages. So what we usually do is that we sometimes we have big markets that we would like to go there, and then we ask them that we would like you guys to start to understand the language, and we will be the first there in the market. And sometimes there are other few companies who started within the same timelines that we started at, who had like other markets as a priority. So for example, when we went into Brazil and Mexico, for example, where we have like Spanish and Portuguese, so we had another client there, so they already have this capability in place. But yes, they consider several languages. Yes, please.
Is within the algorithms to make sure that you're not hiring the exact same candidate over and over again?
Amazing. So basically, this is the next slide. It's basically the compliance piece, which is again, talking about US or Europe, this is highly regulated markets. You need to make sure that, and even if it's not a highly regulated markets, this is the right thing to do. So those are like kind of key tips that if you are looking at an AI tool, because again, every 2-3 weeks, there's a new AI tool that they are saying that we can like help you with your talent acquisition challenges. So the first one of which is basically you have what we call it glass box approach for those AI tools. More of they can explain how decisions were made by the system and provide you with like a log saying that this is the factors that were incorporated, and those are like kind of how the decision was made. And there are like kind of, when we've been talking about this yesterday, there are tools that it is not regulated, and hence you cannot really say how they evolved into these kind of actions, which is more of a black box kind of approach. So the first one is make sure it is a glass house or a glass box approach. The second one is an adverse impact analysis. This is back to your question. So there is a regular adverse impact analysis to make sure that any recommendation, whether it's fetch or whether it is the scoring that is being done, is not adversely impacting any minority groups. So we do that in this tool. We do that as well with our like assessment solutions to make sure that it is not impacting negatively any minority groups. Again, data logging, making sure that all the logs are there, and again, this goes hand in hand with the explainable algorithms. And finally, all those documentations are available, and you have someone in your organization who has track of that, as well as the vendor as your partner. So those are the key things. So most importantly is the explainability aspect, and that you will need to make sure while you are selecting those tools. And here actually, again, I will reflect on the conversation that happened around the roles and responsibilities and the collaboration with IT. You wouldn't expect me, for example, and we've been laughing about this with Philip yesterday, to be what we call it, a glass box certified. He said that you are a glass box certified. No, I said that no. Is there a glass box certification? He said yes. Then this is probably what you would expect an IT professional to be. So he's someone who can vet an AI algorithm and say that yes, this is something that we can actually monitor. This is a compliant technology, versus you expect someone within the TA function or within the HR function to do it. Did this answer your question? Okay. Any other questions you guys have?
We have about 5 minutes left for questions
for
Ehab, so very fascinating.
Anything
I think we have
about
a question over there at the back end.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you very much. Yes.
Hello. I had a question about how your applicants apply on your website. Do you have like a fixed form, or can they just send in their resume and then the system can track any kind of resumes?
So the system tracks any resumes because the system actually is integrated with the applicant tracking system. So it's a little bit complex. So we have actually an application kind of technology that helps with the ease of application. So it's more of sitting on top of the applicant tracking system. Once the data are fed into the applicant tracking system, HeartScore is on top of applicant tracking system.
Okay.
So they can pull all those details and run the math.
Thank you so much.
Sure.